What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Glory Boys podcast. My name's Austin.
I'm Darren.
I'm Trev.
And I'm Ray.
And we are your hosts. This podcast is designed for you creatives out there, whether you're a freelancer just starting out, wanting to step into full-time creative freelancing, or somebody wanting to take your current freelance business to the next level. This podcast is for you.
This week we are talking about the art of interviewing people.
Ooh.
It is more than just asking random questions to random people. But before we get into that, I want to ask you guys if you are aware of how trains work, because apparently I was not. Let me tell you a story. So,
Okay.
when I leave for work in the morning, sometimes I stop at the gas station and get gas. There's railroad tracks right across from the gas station I stop at. I'm thinking these days train. It's like a coal train or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm thinking trains are mostly automated at this time. Do you guys?
Wait,
I mean, is there like
what do you
a-
mean by automated?
Like, is there a conductor?
Like you thinking nobody's driving the train? And
No, there's for sure people driving them.
This is my understanding is that it's
how many?
at this point it's probably a computer or some sort of software doing the work,
Okay.
and there's maybe a guy there overseeing it.
Like
That's-
one guy?
Yeah, one guy
makes
at
sense.
the front. The
I mean,
conductor,
what-
right?
I could
You don't
see
have to
that.
steer it. It's not like you have to.
Yeah,
like,
see, that's
do stuff.
kind of what I was thinking.
You just start steering the train.
Let me
Yeah,
tell
it's
you
like you-
something.
There's not a steering wheel.
Yeah, there's
So
definitely not a
what?
steering
What is
wheel.
the? I mean,
Yeah, where are you going with this?
Well, I'll tell you where I'm going with it. I can't speak for the actual details of what happens inside the train, but this is something I did not expect. I've seen it twice now.
Okay.
I stop getting gas. There is a railroad crossing kind of by the gas station, and the train station, I guess, if you will, wherever he's dropping off, is down the roadways. Twice now, this conductor, confirmed there is someone in it, stops the train right across from the gas station, and my man's just hops out, walks over to the gas station,
Oh,
gets
that's
himself a
amazing.
snack.
No way.
I've
love
seen it twice now.
Yo, that's sick.
It blew my mind. I was
that's
like,
a thing you can do.
I didn't
Well,
have any idea you can manipulate a train like that.
If you can, if you know, your line or whatever, and you know there's no one behind you, they're very, they know, obviously, what's on the track and what's
Sure.
coming.
Yeah.
So if you have, a
Yeah.
time frame and whatever.
Dude, you know
And I'm
what's funny though? That explains why, especially in Lincoln, there's this intersection that you go to. The train is literally there for hours. I'm not even joking you. So maybe my man
Must
got,
just
had
got
to go
out,
to
he's
the
like,
bathroom or something.
Yo, I'm gonna
bro.
take my lunch break right here. I'll just park the train. I'll just be here a minute.
Literally.
Be right back.
The
Like,
first
hey man,
time-
can you watch this train for me? Just make sure nobody takes it.
Yeah, I mean, he's leaving that mug on, bro.
Yeah. A train driver, engine man, or locomotive driver is what they're called, I guess.
Wow.
So
Commonly
it's
known as engineer or railroad engineer.
Yeah, that's right. So wait,
Yep.
where does conductor come from? That's not the same.
Well, I feel like that's for passenger trains. So I think it's a
Oh.
term like
Who
you think
drives
Polar
a
Express, like the
train?
conductor
Oh,
is
yeah.
like
Nice.
Yeah.
the guy, like, oh boy.
Yeah, he's the producer
Yeah.
of the show, baby.
Yeah, that.
I got you. Yeah. Anyway, this
train
blew
drivers-
my mind,
Do
dude.
train drivers still exist? Is a top Google ask.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Dang.
something that could for sure, like, if self-driving cars are a thing and they can steer and predict people braking and potential car crashes, wouldn't you think that they could install like one forward-facing and one rear-facing like obstacle avoidance sensor in the train, and it could probably run by
Yeah.
itself?
But here's the thing. A lot of the trains, what they have on their trains nowadays, is probably like oil or gas. A lot of the times, right?
Sure.
So would you trust an automated system to do that? Like, let's just say there's a random deer, for example, and it's a herd of deers or something, and the train just takes them all out. Sounds really bad, right?
I mean, I feel like that probably happens anyways.
But would you trust an automated system to take care of the oil and stuff on there?
First of all,
I mean, what's the dude gonna do?
I believe the term you're looking for is a flock of deer.
There you go. I knew
flock
I was
of
going to get it
deer.
wrong.
No,
No,
Don't worry.
that's not. That's
Hey,
that's
what-
definitely not the term.
What do you think the
Hey, what is a group of deer called? Is it a
a
herd?
herd? It's gotta be.
I don't think it's a herd.
It's not a flock.
Look
I
it
don't
up.
think it's a flock.
Flock
but
is feathers, you know?
I could be wrong with the
Ben
herd,
would be
though.
so disappointed. We just had Ben on the show, and he'd be so
yes.
disappointed.
It is a it is a herd. Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I
nice.
thought.
All right.
Yeah,
Herd
Let's
of
go,
deer.
dude.
herds.
What do you think the
Or a bevy or a wrangell.
Oh, yeah, Rango. Yeah, for sure, dude.
Yeah, you knew that. That's
Oh,
what you
yeah.
said it before.
Yeah, that's
or
what
a
I said.
bunch. So a bunch of deer getting
okay.
Just a
getting
bunch
ran
of
over by
deer.
the train.
Oh, just a bunch.
But again, if you had, I mean, there's technology in cars that will do
Right.
that. There's technology in drones that will do that even better than the human reaction time can do it.
Right.
So why
That's
can't
true.
they? I mean, I feel like it's something that we definitely have the technology to
We-
do,
Or maybe it's in the works. Who knows?
or maybe
I did not expect to see a dude hop out
it
the
just
train.
parks it real quick.
He
and just,
literally parks it on the track.
Yeah, I just Googled
doesn't
that.
it take like 2
Hops
full miles
over.
to stop a
He
train?
probably has
You're
it
going
timed.
fast.
to time it from
He-
all the way
He
back.
probably
Yeah,
has
it's
had
like-
it timed perfectly.
Dang it! I started stopping 5 seconds too late. Now I'm blocking this intersection until I get it going again.
No, that's like what they do. Like this dude, angry driver forced to wait while train engineer breaks for food.
Yeah.
dude, that's amazing.
I mean, I guess they
Bro,
got
my man just
stop
wanted
it.
McDonald's, dude.
A train engineer
Yeah.
wasn't letting anything get in his way of his hunger, so he stopped at a restaurant for lunch.
I had
Nice.
no idea it was a thing. Seen it twice now. Blows my
Dang.
mind every time.
That's kind of sick. You
Shout
should take
out
a
to that
picture. I
guy.
feel like it's like a.
You
scene
I
that
should,
you
You
yeah.
take a
want.
picture with him. Be like, hey man, I've never
Can I
seen one
just-
of you guys. Can I take a picture
Right.
with you?
The closest I saw him was getting back onto the train. He was like walking down the ditch and up. I was like,
Next
don't
time
be
you see
walking
him, will
next to
you ask
train
him if we
tracks.
could shoot a music video on his train sometime?
yeah, I'll ask him that.
Wait,
'Cause
dude,
that would be sick.
That would be super
to
sick.
shoot a music video on top of a moving train would
That
be
would be dope.
epic.
Dang.
wait, real question though. What was he wearing? Are they still wearing like the little big
Striped,
hats?
like,
yeah,
hat.
you know?
No, I don't know. He just like, I don't know, something
Probably
like
wearing like a bright yellow Dickies t-shirt
like
with
something that
grease
construction
stains all
worker,
over it.
something that
Lime green.
construction worker would wear. Something like
Yeah.
that is what he
That's
was
funny.
wearing.
Huh.
But I was just in my head. I was like, don't be messing around train tracks, my guy. And then turns out it was his train. So
Are you
well,
ready? You got to rap about trains.
Oh, a freestyle about
Oh
trains.
my God.
Yeah. You ready?
Who's starting?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw a train the other day. I was like, yo, what's up? What's going on? He hopped out the train. He's stopping by to get a drink.
Sick.
Yeah.
Walk
call-
into the QT, trying to get my snackle.
Yeah.
Went over to get some Rice Krispies. It was like pop, snap, and crackle. What?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got a soda. Yeah, I got a 99 cents hot dog. They're 2 for 1. If it's on a Tuesday, you know I'm the one.
Sick.
That was trash. I was trying to think about being in a QT and like what I would see, but I just my
Right.
brain and I spit all the bars before the episode. So
And that's why we're not
your
Harry
turn.
Mack.
Quick stop.
bars.
Yeah, that's it.
Quick
Uh,
stop. Bring the train to a quick stop. Get the snacks.
Quick stop.
Mama.
Quick stop. Quick stop.
I don't know. Dude.
Mama.
Mama,
Trains.
come and go. Casey's.
QT.
Yeah.
Buc-ee's.
Hy-Vee, fresh.
Shells.
Fresh and save or whatever it's called.
We out.
R.I.P. Bucky's.
R.I.P. Buc-ee's.
Yikes.
Did the dog die?
No, they just took them all away here in Nebraska.
Oh yeah, because Casey's bought them all. Because
Yeah.
Casey's is way better.
They bought all the what?
All of the
All the-
Bucky's.
Did they?
Yeah, to all
Sick,
the
because Buc-ee's
KCs.
is trash.
Yeah, Bucky sucks.
Yeah.
Buc-ee's, they went from the worst pizza to the best pizza, if
They-
that's the case. Because
they-
Buc-ee's had like the worst pizza possible, and Casey's has like the best pizza possible.
But it's only in small towns. The Casey's here in Omaha sucks. I'd
No,
I'd
it's
rather
still
go to
pretty
QT
good.
all day long and eat whatever they got there.
Yeah, I mean QT does have the snackle.
Nah, cool.
I don't even know what a snackle is. So
That's just what they call their food selection.
oh, like all of it.
It's just a marketing term.
Oh,
Like, get your
snackles.
snackle.
Not like
It's not an actual item. It's like
I thought you made that word up. I'm
no,
not gonna
they
lie.
have
I
it
was
on their
like, dang,
billboards.
okay.
It's QT is like come get a snackle. That's like their whole thing.
that's
if
kind
you
of. I kind of like
next
that.
time you walk into a QT, look at their like digital menu. You'll see snackle on there.
Got it. Today we're talking about how I guess really the approach of us like giving interviews and filming them. It's really fun to pull people's stories out of them. It's an art form. I think some people are better
Yep.
at it than others, but
Yep.
coming from somebody, it's funny because you think like just because you have a bubbly personality, you'd be good at this. I actually was not very good at talking with people while they're on camera, and I had to like kind of exercise that muscle and learn a ton of skills on how to really like analyze the person, learn them before they're sitting down and like just starting conversation. getting them really, really excited. I know we're going to dive in some of that detail, but I just remember having to like, yeah, it's just, you got to be on and you got to be like, really, really have a servant heart and just really care and make them feel comfortable. And then in turn, you'll get a really great interview most of the time.
Yeah.
It kind of depends. Sometimes you just can't even, no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, we've been there. Let's start there. What can you do as the interviewer to prep yourself before the interview?
So
that's important.
I have a question.
Okay.
Should you prep your people on the questions you're asking them, or should you not?
I go back and forth on
answers.
this all the time, dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the time.
So before I get your answers, when we started for the first, honestly, until pretty recently, we would
last
almost
week.
never prep our interview subjects on the questions because the reason for that is because we wanted their responses to be as natural and organic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And a lot of people, if you give them some prep, you give them the questions, they're going to write out an exact word for word script. They're going to memorize it. And it kind of takes all of the organic feel out of that. And so, yeah, we recently have been doing it the other way where we have been prepping people. And so what are your guys' thoughts?
To answer that, I think it goes both ways, right? So you want people to be aware of the questions beforehand because then they know what they're going to think about or how they're going to answer. Because if you just give it to them right off the bat, like they show up, they have nothing in their mind.
Yeah.
And then they're having to make things on the spot.
Yep.
Because I think even with creating a story, the first time you tell the story, it's like, that's okay. But the more you tell the story, the more your pieces come together.
Sure.
The more it sounds very conclusive and you get a start to finish and basically the whole entire story. So if you send the questions beforehand, then you kind of do miss that like authenticity part of it where like they already have answered this question before.
Sure.
Probably numerous times, but at least they know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
I know that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, for me, it's funny because you almost like bring up the questions as they're sitting down, and they almost feel like disrespected almost. Like, oh, like the person never sent me the like they're already kind of starting the interview pretty upset or like almost angry or frustrated.
Yeah.
And then you're having to like ease them down and then try to like pull this stuff. They're like mad that they're even there because they're like, well, I wasn't ready for this. And people, whatever, sitting in front of a camera, people get a little weird anyway. And so trying to like remove barriers, but you're already starting with a massive one. So from my experience recently, Austin just said that we really never did give them ahead of time, but we just had a group of people that came in all day for 2 days and they had the questions, or I didn't know they had the questions first. And I'm like, yo, these interviews are going awesome. And you're like, yeah, they knew the questions already. And I was like, whoa, that's sick. So for me, it opened my eyes to be like, it's still going to be authentic. They just feel more comfortable in front of the camera. Not everyone is a professional speaker or excited to talk on camera, but people do like to share and do like to be heard. Yeah. Mostly everyone. And so I feel like when they have the questions, then they know what they're getting themselves into. And then it really just removes that kind of awkward barrier of like, hey, you're going to sit here and tell me stuff that you didn't prepare.
Yeah, it gives them confidence, I think.
Yeah.
And like you said, it gives them that they're not already like stressing out because they're wondering what the heck you're going to ask them.
Right.
And so, I would say I've kind of changed my mind about it a little bit, even over the past couple weeks. And I think it can depend on the type of question, there's maybe certain questions. And I think that's something that we'll get into more of like, maybe don't send them all the questions you're planning on asking, or maybe just send the ones that require some preparation. So one of the questions that we asked was like, can you describe to us a time where you went above and beyond and had a positive outcome for it? So something like that, that way they don't have to take 5 minutes and try to think up. And the first thing that comes to their mind, they can actually spend some time thinking about it and coming up with the response. And we did that. And I think it went really, really well.
And I know for like my wife or just people that like being prepped, I know like she likes to rehearse things with me. So if she has something at work or whatever, she likes to have me ask her a question and then she likes to answer it. if she's prepping for anything like speaking or whatever, she likes to kind of recite and just talk about it. And so I know for a lot of people, they would probably take that question and have their spouse or friend or family member read it to them, and they can kind of rehearse, not like they're word for word scripting it, but they are, like you said, having time to think through what they're going to say. What did like you do like just the last like couple years of doing interviews and stuff like that?
Yeah. Again, I go back and forth on the two because I've seen it work out really well. But for me, it's really all based on like the piece of content we're making and the production of it. So for instance, filming something like a really emotional docuseries, I would rather not prep.
Sure.
I would rather not prep my people because I want it to be kind of like we said before. I want it to be so raw, and I know it's going to be something they're knowledgeable or comfortable talking about because they're in the docuseries for a reason.
Sure.
And so that I just have found to be so good for like their personality shines through that, you know. And it does. I mean, if you know your subject or if you've been able to be in contact with them leading up, it gives you an idea of how well they're going to be on camera.
Dude, what the heck? I just turned to freaking check to make sure this is recording. I'm gonna go check over here.
He hit that backhand, bro. He hit that backhand. Wow. Just in case we keep this part in, if you're not watching, Austin dumped his drink. He dumped his drink for the second time while recording.
Bro, just finish that drink, chug it already.
Which is
Shouts out to whatever paper towel brand this is.
Yeah, dude.
Soaked up a lot of it.
Yeah, I'm talking about impulsivity and depending on the production.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is a time, and especially if you know your subject and you know, like for instance, I've filmed something where we were filming with football coaches, super charismatic people, super high energy people. Those guys are great to just get in, have yourself prepared, but just throw questions at them and thought through, which we'll talk about. But the chances are, if you send questions to a football coach, they're probably not reading.
No.
They're so busy. They're
Right.
so go. So that's why I say I'm back and forth, because drawing from the same shoot that you guys were just talking about, it was so helpful for that shoot.
You have to know your audience.
You got to know who you're interviewing and what they're comfortable with, and if your questions require a lot of thought, a lot of more depth to it, as opposed to just being able to pull off the top of your head. So that's why I say there's room for both. And for me, it largely depends on your production and on the story, but not only the story, but the feel of the story that you're trying to tell.
There's a lot of factors in there. I think you can really look at it like, the story, but also like the time frame of like how much time do you have with this person, and like trying to figure out, am I gonna just go off the bat and just hope that they talk about what I need them to talk about? Also, like, what are you capturing the story for? Of like, what is this about? Like, what am I interviewing them about? Like, if I'm asking them about their work, but this video is gonna be about some other project in their life, like what is the thing that we're asking them? I don't know. That goes. I guess that kind of leads into this next question that I kind of have for you guys is, how do you go about like picking out the right questions?
Yeah, this is something that was also super prevalent, and one of like the very first things I learned or observed really at a high level about interviewing, because there are companies who, in my opinion, will cross that boundary of integrity and just put words in their subject's mouth. Whatever they want for their video, they're going to get, because they're going to give them a script to say it, basically. And that just was never, I never subscribed to that type of thinking for an interview. I don't care what it is, because I want it to be authentic and I want the person to say what they want to say. Granted, you can manipulate it in post. A lot of people do that as well. And sometimes even we will do it just to tighten things up here and there and whatnot. But that's where the actual like creation of your questions and thinking through, if my story needs to go like this, if my story arc is like this and they're playing this part, what questions do I need to ask in order to get them to talk about this thing, this thing, this thing.
Mhm.
So I'm not feeding them a script saying, hey, can you say something about this? Or hey, can you say this? I have actually taken the time to think through a question that gets them there naturally. So I'm not manipulating anything.
Mhm.
They're not feeling manipulated and forced to say something they don't want to say.
Right.
So I found that to be so important in prepping an interview, is like actually taking the time to formulate these questions that have real body, have real meaning,
Mhm.
and real strategy behind why you're asking them. And that
Yeah.
even comes down to the order that you're asking them,
Yep.
and how, and the flow of the conversation, how you
Yeah.
want that to go.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think typically it's almost in like kind of a chronological order. And again, it depends on the nature of the content that you're shooting. Yeah, just being strategic. So like for this shoot, we're trying to really get these subjects to tell us why they're passionate about their career. They received awards for being nominated as the top people in their industry in Omaha.
Mhm.
And so they clearly like have a level of passion for their job. And
Yeah.
so our job as the interviewers is to pull that out of them as
Yeah.
best as we can. And
Right.
so we're going to ask everyone the same set of questions, but those questions need to be strategically formulated around getting them to express the more feely side of things. Now, obviously we need a few things here and there of like more practical or technical or whatever, but the majority of this video is trying to capture the emotion and inspire people.
Yeah.
And so the questions are formulated in that way. It's not really so much of trying to pull out storytelling or specific, examples or stories, but really just trying to capture the emotion and the why and the purpose and the motivation. And so, structuring your questions. One thing that we learned is like never, ever, ever let your client decide the questions that they're going to ask.
Yeah.
We made this mistake way too many times. We were very hands off because we didn't want to like step on their toes, but we've realized that we're the consultants, we're the experts in this area. And so at the very least, taking and reviewing the questions that your client wants you to ask and adding your own suggestions, bringing your own ideas to the table, or, can we word this a little bit differently? And so, that's a huge part of it, is just being strategic with those questions that you're asking.
Yeah. One of the things that I think we did early on is sometimes it's a little daunting when you have to do like 10 or 15 interviews, or 20 or sometimes 30. I think we did 30 one time, 35, 40 at ATech.
Yeah, like 45.
45.
Yeah,
So
it was a
it's-
crap load.
Yeah, it's a lot. And so you get like into the mode of like, okay, we got to set up, make sure light looks good, audio's rolling, we're good. All right, cool, go. Just let's get it done. And it's 45 different personalities. I mean, it's a lot, and you're just talking all day. So you're just like, let's get it done, let's get it done, let's get it done. Then you bring it into the editing room and you're like, all of this sucks. I'm not going to use any of this. We didn't get anything. We got like, he said his name and that's it. Oh, he smiled in this clip. We can put him in the intro. Like, literally, like that's what we're running into, because we wouldn't take ownership of some of those scenarios, and we'd let, like Austin said, the client take over and ask the questions. And it's like, it was just super cringe. So you just kind of have to get over yourself and just take authority and ask those questions, because again, like, we are the professionals. That's why we were hired. And so we've, it only took us like 5 years to get there, but you know, we're there now, and we've realized the value we bring when we step in the room, and we can actually show up and bring the best out of people.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If you're doing video, whether you're freelance or up to agency, chances are that you're going to be shooting talking head interview at some point or another.
Right.
For some of you, it may make up a good majority of your business, shooting talking head content. And so learning what can make the difference between you getting the answers that you plan for and you producing and pulling the absolute best that you can out of somebody, there's a very, very big difference. You can conduct an interview, or you can have someone, like this literally just happened to us with this nurses shoot. Each of these people were in our studio for maybe 10 minutes a piece. I mean, the interviews are very short, 5 questions. I don't think one of them went over 10 minutes. So we have 10 minutes with these people to build rapport, make them feel comfortable doing something they're not used to doing, pull things out of them, help them, coach them, all of these things. You have 10 minutes to make an impact on them.
Right.
We had people that in those 10 minutes were blown away at the experience that they had working with us.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get down to here today. Is it's an art form. you can produce an interview and it's gets the job done, or you can produce an interview and it's a completely different experience for the client, and you get a completely different product for it. And so prepping, that's one part of it. Kind of prepping your questions on the front end, I think can really, really help set you up for success.
Yep.
But now let's talk about, okay, you've got your questions in place, you're set up, your talent walks in the room.
Oh, right before that,
Yeah.
if you're not good at writing, there's a really great system that you can use.
GPT. So, yeah, no, you're absolutely right, which I used to write these questions. And
Yeah.
of course, I looked over them. Again, it's a tool. It's not going to
Right.
replace creative thought.
Yep.
But I'm not a specialist in this industry.
Yep.
So for me to try to think of relevant questions to ask these people, I understand what's a good question and what's a bad question. So I can have ChatGPT. I said, hey, write me 5 questions for these people that are winning this award in this industry in this city. And it wrote me 5 really, really great questions.
Yeah, super sick. The
Actually, I
client
think it
was-
wrote me 6, and I think I deleted 1 because it was irrelevant.
Yeah.
But like, again,
But the client was really happy with
blown
them.
away.
And it was
And they
just-
were better than I could have thought of. If
Yeah.
I had spent hours researching,
Yeah.
like they were better than the questions I would have came up with.
So yeah, just be smart and use your resources. I don't know if you're an AI fan or not. Just come to the dark side because AI is just friggin' awesome.
Well, here's the thing.
So-
I didn't get into this business to write interview questions. So it's not my main passion. If I can in 10 seconds have 5 banger interview questions,
Yep.
and then I can use what I'm good at,
Yep.
which is listening to the person tell their story, latch on to certain things they're saying, and then have them tell me more about that to ultimately pull what we're actually getting at. Because I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
this whole thing is like you're holding their hand, guiding them through.
Right.
The questions are not necessarily what you want answers to. It's what they're going to get into as they're answering the question
Yeah.
that then you can go further down into, that I think is where you really get the gold in interviews.
Facts.
Like you just need a base level, like a foundation essentially,
Yeah.
Yep.
for you to get yourself in that door. Because none of us know, other than probably Darren, know a lot about nursing or
Still
the
don't.
nursing world, and like so it's like it's really more a foundational piece for you
Yep.
to get in the door, which is
It's a starting
the-
point.
Yeah, the way to be able to ask these questions because we don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and so like once they do come in and they're like, oh, they kind of know a little bit about our industry. We really don't. We're just asking questions
Yeah,
to
right.
get to know more about your
Yeah.
industry,
Yep.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Before we get too much into like the art of asking questions and pulling more out of people,
Mm.
before, like, as the client or the talent is walking into the room, I think there's a lot of practical steps that we've just kind of adopted naturally. I don't know that we had like a spreadsheet, SOP for it, but I think after this last week, we could probably create one.
Yeah.
So let's walk through kind of the dynamic of, as the talent's walking into the room, what are some things that we're doing? And just to quickly touch on the technical aspects, I really don't want to talk about lighting, camera setup, whatever. We're doing a 2-camera setup, B cams on a slider. We're using a softbox as our key light and a pavo tube as our backlight. We're doing a 2-light setup, and we're
Yep.
shooting into the shadow side
Right.
of their face.
Yep.
We got a nice, soft, kind of rappy Rembrandt style lighting, and that's all that there needs to be said about that.
Yep.
In terms of lighting setup. But as they're walking into the room, maybe one of us is setting up the slider. So let's just walk through from the moment the person walks into the room, what happens.
I think what we're really good at and what everyone, should adopt is right away you're hospitable. Right away you're hospitable. You're introducing yourself first.
We just knock them out.
Hospital.
We put those in the
Excuse me, sir. Would you like a Band-Aid?
You put them
or
in
an
the
IV
hospital.
bag, maybe?
Right away.
Put them in a casket.
Hospitable.
You show them who's
Boss.
yeah, exactly. No, you greet them, introduce yourself first if you haven't already met them. In our instance, we do have like waters and coffee and thing to offer them. So just really making them comfortable right when they walk in the door.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be the whole team. Sometimes it is if we're all standing there, but it doesn't have to be this overwhelming giant welcome. It's just get one person to acknowledge that they're here and that you're excited that they're here.
Yeah. And the recommendation I would have for that is whoever on your team is, if that's just you, it's you,
Yeah,
obviously.
great.
But if you have other people on team, like, have the person who's the friendliest around people do that. A lot of times that's Darren. He's our vibe carrier, culture carrier.
100%.
He's really the person that when people meet him, they remember Darren, and he leaves an impact on them, and he has that unique ability to kind of leave an impact on people in a very short amount of time. So usually what's happening, Darren's introducing himself. He's cracking a couple jokes. He's, you want a latte. Like, people don't offer, like, do you want a latte when they walk in to do an interview? So it almost like catches them off guard in a really good way of like, oh, wow, like you're offering to make me a latte right now?
It's not even a black coffee.
Yeah.
It is a latte.
It's like kind of a joke, but
Right.
actually we'll make you a latte because we care about you and we
Right.
want to serve the crap out of you.
And we're gonna give it to you in like a glass jar that you can take with you home.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, bro, you don't get
Right.
that.
So tip number one, like,
Get an espresso
be
machine.
freaking friendly.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Just
not,
be a nice person.
BFF.
it can be hard, but that's
Nice.
a big part of it because you have to realize 95% of the people that you're interviewing probably have never done this before.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's up to you. They don't know you. They're walking in, they're nervous, they're thinking about their answers, they're meeting people that they don't know. They have all these lights and cameras and microphones in their face.
Mm-hmm.
It's on you and up to you to make them feel comfortable as soon as possible.
Yeah. So that's like one of my biggest passions too is they come in the room. It doesn't matter who they are or who they're with or what they're doing. It's just, hey, how are you doing? My name is Darren. Like, how can I serve you? How can I help you? We have water, we have cold water, we have room temp water, and we have a latte if you'd like. And then show them where the bathrooms are. And then, cool, we're going to get started. Just walk downstairs into the studio. The rest of the guys are in there. Just make it feel like, our home is your home. So, we'll get started in a few minutes. Just let them kind of breathe, let them hang out. I'm usually going to probably just make up something or figure out some way to connect with them. This time it was nurses. So, I was like, hey, my wife's a nurse. And where are you at? And, oh, you're at Methodist too. And I could literally just use that as leverage, and then it led into like talking about dogs with one person, and then because my dog was here, and so that's a great icebreaker. Dogs are great. My dog is freaking awesome, and everyone loves my dog. No, I'm just biased,
True.
but I
That's
do.
true.
But
Everyone loves Lola.
But everyone that meets her was like, "Oh, I love dogs. I have too," and like it just broke the ice right away. A couple of other things, like talking to the husband that was with one of them. Like he's not there to do interview, but I was like, "Oh, he's a homie. Like let's talk, let's chat, let's see what you're into." Like if their shirt says something, like there's a lot of like little things that just people want to talk about, but you just have to kind of dig and
Just asking about themselves.
and you can learn their personality pretty quickly. Like if they're a little shy, if they're a little bubbly, like just whatever type, so that when they're sitting down, now the person, me, is interviewing you and I just learned about you. We talked about dogs and laughed for a little bit. Now it's like, all right, cool. Let's just do this. It's going to be super quick and painless. Like we're just going to have some fun. Cool. Here we go. And they're like usually like, cool. This feels good. And they're ready to go. And they're not stressed out. They're not, like,
Right.
and sometimes they are. And we take a little time with that person after they sit down. They're like, cameras are here. Okay. Like this feels a little weird, but like, hey, it's all good. Like, we're going to chop you up. And one of the things we always say,
We're going to chop you up.
Chop you up.
no.
Send you to the hospital.
We're going to chop you up into little pieces and put you in our freezer.
Come on, man. I wasn't done. So what I'm saying is like, we're going to chop your
Chop
video
it
up.
up.
And we're shooting two angles.
So we'll make you sound like a rock star. And I think that
We say
line,
that a lot. Yeah.
that line has really worked for people to feel confident because we're like, hey, we're, no matter what, if you mess up or if we hear that you mess up, we'll have you restate the thing that you said. If you don't like what you said, you can re-say it. And we can, go line by line if they're really, really nervous, and we'll chop it up and we'll make it sound awesome and make you sound like a rock star. And usually after that line, they're like, cool, I'm in a room with professionals. I'm good.
Right.
And we usually can really start from that moment and the interview goes great.
And usually while this is taking place, because you also need to be efficient on set. So if this is just you could be doing this as you're doing other things, setting up, testing audio, making sure that the angle's right. People are different heights. You have to raise or lower the tripod, whatever. Right. As someone is talking and warm, that's why it's really nice to have multiple people when you're doing interviews.
Yeah.
But while someone's talking, getting the person warmed up, breaking the ice, being friendly, that's when you take the opportunity to finish your lighting touches, get the microphone in the right place, testing audio, even as they're just having a conversation back and forth. You can kind of get a good gauge for your audio levels. And so that's a way you can kind of save time, kill two birds with one stone. And then really that brings us to, we've kind of prepped them. A recommendation I would maybe give is have them sit or stand in the area that you want them to be in as you're doing all of this, because that is important for lighting. So we usually just, hey, if you don't mind, you can have a seat right here. Once they sit down, then we'll start kind of having a conversation so that we can set our angles and lighting and everything like that. So now we've reached the official point of we're hitting record. Yeah. We're starting the interview. What are some things that because I think another key is because these people are nervous, they're not pros at this.
Yeah.
You can very easily overwhelm them with a lot of instructions and overcomplicating things. And we've worked with people before who we've done an interview with them, and afterwards they're like, wow, that was so easy. Like, we did this with a team last year, and like it was so complicated, and it made me so nervous. And so I think you can very easily overwhelm them. So what are the simple things that we do Darren mentioned, coaching them through, hey, we'll make you sound amazing. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But if you say something and you don't like how you said it, just give us a quick pause, say that sentence again as many times as you want to get it right.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that we kind of do to help set them up for success?
It's a lot of encouragement and reassurance in what they're doing as we get into the questions. A little bit of that instruction is, you kind of lay it on as you go and as it comes up, and just reassure them they're doing a great job. They look great. They're sounding really good. As conversational as I can make it, that's the sweet spot. So it doesn't sound like we feed you a question, you feed us a line, on to the next.
Yeah.
Like, that's, in my opinion, what you want to avoid the most.
Yeah.
And so, just making it as chill an environment as you possibly can, making it seem like a normal conversation, and really finding, because what I love is most often when you're interviewing somebody, they're not comfortable in this situation, being in front of cameras and under lights and a microphone in front of their face. A lot of times they're not comfortable in that, but they're most likely a absolute pro at whatever you're asking them about.
Right.
At their industry, of what they do, they're a total pro. So it's just, how can we alleviate the stress of this moment so that we can really key into what you're passionate about, and we can get that out of you for the interview is really the goal.
That's really good. A really easy line that I'll use probably way too much is, you're clearly passionate about this, or you're clearly an expert, and that's why you're here. Like, thank you so much for what you do or how you do this, or it's incredible, like what your organization does.
Yeah.
Like, just really building them. And it's not, I don't think it's false, or not false.
No, you're not being fake about it.
Not being fake about it. It's like, this is worthy of capturing. Like, I want to know more about your story. And you can even defer to, like, I don't know much about your industry. Like, tell me this. Like you're actually wanting to know personally, rather than just, I need to get something from you.
Yeah. I think that seems like a conversation.
100%, which I think you do a really great job of.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to back up real quick. I want to give two quick tips just before because I think the bulk of this episode will be talking about how to pull the best out. And I don't want to,
Right.
I want to come back to that for sure.
Sure.
But before we get there, a couple quick pro tips. Number one thing we've learned, always have your subject say and spell their first and last name before hit record, and before you ask them a question.
Say it again, Austin.
Have them say and spell their first and last name.
Ooh, and why would you do that?
Because then you don't have to go chasing down the client, asking them to put together a list of names and to attach photos to them so you know who the heck you're interviewing.
Yeah, y'all got some weird spelling names.
Right. And I always usually will, if someone has a very interesting spelling name, I'll usually be like, I'm really glad we had you do that, because there's no way I would have gotten that right. And usually they get a little laugh out of that.
My name's Frank.
And whatnot. But
PHRYNQ.
Nice.
And that's Frank.
So yeah, ask them to say and spell their name. That way you have it. And if you misspell it and it was how they spelled it, then at least you can say it wasn't your fault.
There you go.
Tip number 2 is, and this is really the only thing that I ask them to be mindful of. I don't tell them, like, try not to say or any of that, because then they just get in their head.
Yeah, don't do that.
The only thing I tell them is, if you could try to remember to rephrase the question at the beginning of your answer, that would be helpful. And I use the example every time of, if I asked you, what is your favorite color? You would start by saying, my favorite color is blue, or whatever that color is. So it's giving context to the question that was asked. What inspired you to become a nurse? What inspired me to become a nurse was this. That can help you just tell the story better, because if they just start off with, my dad was a nurse and so I wanted to become a nurse, instead of, I was inspired to become a nurse because I always saw my dad being a nurse and that made me want to become a nurse.
Changes everything.
It just, you don't have to put yourself asking the question. It may be really basic, stupid tip, but I think it's important, because
super
if
helpful.
you don't have that context, it just it's really hard to tell a story.
In
I
the
think.
edit too, you're having
yeah,
to.
it's tougher for sure.
You can't use the statement that they used at the top of the video because it doesn't really point to the context of which you're wanting the video to go.
Yep.
So you have to use that phrase like later after as like an and statement, and it just doesn't flow as nice, and you don't have as much, I guess, wiggle room to put the story together, I guess.
Mhm.
Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I think another thing that can help put them at ease, and something that we do sometimes we don't, is putting somebody maybe next to the camera or a couple feet away from the camera and having that person ask the question so that they're just talking directly to them.
Yep.
I think it can kind of help them get out of the looking into a camera lens and the whole lights, camera, action
right.
kind of stage fright.
Yeah,
I think it just makes them more comfortable. So
for sure.
those are my tips for kind of actually starting the interview. So
Yeah.
now we can.
I think, well, even like 9 out of 10 times, the person that's in front of the camera, they're supposed to be there. So if that person wants to open up and wants to talk about the thing they're really good at, the profession they're in, or whatever it is, whatever story you're looking at, you just have to try to figure out how to get that out of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like the first thing you said, it's making them feel comfortable.
Yep.
So if you're by yourself and you have to do all of this by yourself, set it up, keep talking to them, keep asking them questions. I think a lot of the times that we also do is we hit record right away, right before anything, and we just start setting audio levels and everything, just because they're like, oh, the camera's been running this whole time? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the time people feel comfortable.
Mm.
They're like, oh, I've been talking in front of the camera the whole time. Wow, I would have never even noticed that the camera was on.
It's really
Because I
great.
think you get this like really, like people get this perspective of like the way they used to do it, like back then, where it was like, oh, red light's on, camera's on,
Right,
we're recording,
right.
we're live, or like
Yeah.
Yeah.
most people don't really know what that looks like to be in front of camera,
Sure.
and they like think of this like intimidating thing of like, oh my gosh, people are gonna see me, people are gonna know what I'm saying, But I think a lot of the times once you tell them like, oh, we've been recording this whole time, like, then they're like, oh, I'm just having a conversation with them,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
and it makes them feel even more comfortable.
Yeah, it's great.
And I think that's the way to do it. Just keep talking to them, keep asking them questions. And even like when you start off, you like ask them to spell their first and last name. But you're also more so just asking them more stuff, which I think even along the lines of that is like the more you're asking, the more comfortable they're getting.
Yeah.
The more they're like, oh, this guy isn't here to just ask me stuff. He really wants to know what I'm talking about or what I'm going to talk about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that concept right there is birthed from great listening skills during
Yeah.
an interview, which
Yeah.
I think so many people forget to do. And sometimes, even admittedly so, some interviews that I am conducting, I forget to do that as well, because I'm like, okay, as they're speaking, I'm trying to think of where what the next question is going to be, where the story's, kind of leaning and what direction we're going in. But truthfully, like listening is the most important part to your interview, because you have to, in order to make it conversational, you have to draw from what they're giving you.
Yeah.
And so you may have to step away from your question list and ask a few other questions.
Yep.
Or
Yeah, right.
your question list may get better during the interview
Yeah,
based
totally.
on what they're telling you,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
But if you're not actually listening to the words coming out of their mouth, and you're just like, you ask one question, they start talking.
Do you hear
Sorry.
the words coming out of my
That's
mouth?
okay.
understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
I was like, he's got something over
I was
there.
like, oh, dude, did you go there?
understand the word that are coming out of your mouth.
Nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Oh, so
Sorry.
good.
Nice.
That's okay.
I literally was like, to a squirrel.
No, but yeah, you have to listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Nothing's more cringy than you ask them something, they say something.
And they already said it.
Yeah, and then you ask them the
Yeah.
next thing, and
Yeah.
they just said it, and you're like,
Ugh.
what? Because you didn't listen to what they said.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
I
gotta
also
be good
feel like
listeners.
it's kind of cringe. Like, you just have to be open to the natural flow of it. You can come back to your questions. Like, so many times you'll just continue down the rabbit hole that they're giving you,
Right.
because that's what they want to talk about. And so
Mhm.
you just tell me more about that. Or, oh, something that I asked you like sparked a little bit of passion. Cool. Let's go down that road. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have to, on the other hand, sometimes you have to be like, okay, this person just really like maybe isn't very passionate about it, or at least they're not willing to show it or talk about it. And so there are certain interviews where like maybe we'll skip a question,
Okay.
or
Yeah.
we'll just
Yeah.
get through the questions, because we know that any delay, and if the more that we linger on this specific interview, it's actually just going to be a waste of time, because it's not the right subject for
Yeah.
it. And so you can kind of feel that out too.
And that happens, I think, when you're with the client and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go get Dave.
Yeah, we'll just pull him over here
pull
quick
him
for an
and
interview.
see
what-
Hey, Dave, you're still down to do an interview, right? Yep.
He's like, "Oh, I guess
try
so."
to
He's like,
avoid that if
I've
possible.
been
Yeah.
here 72 years, and
Hey, but those 72-year guys, sometimes they say some stuff that you're like,
So-
Those
oh,
guys are
yeah.
funny,
hey,
dude.
No,
for
you can
sure.
I
usually
like Dave
tell.
now. Hey, Dave, come back.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those
You
guys
can
are hilarious.
you can usually tell, I think, within the first like 30 seconds of meeting
Yeah.
somebody, and like just even the icebreakers, you can almost get a feel right away
Yeah.
for like, is this
Yeah.
person going to be worth diving
Yep.
deeper with or
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
And some people are so good that we're like, okay, like
Keep
let's
talking.
hang
Stay
on
here.
this moment. Yep, we're
Don't
done with
go.
questions. We're
Yeah.
gonna continue to
Yeah.
go as far as we can, because this is ultimately what we're looking for, is
Yeah.
what we've got right here. And once you get them to that point of just sharing from their heart, or
Mhm.
whatever it is, where it's
Yep.
its most natural organic form,
Mm-hmm.
like that's when you have to just continue to pull and just keep trying to get more out of them.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, I think you said it. You said stepping out of the questions that you have. Like the more you listen, the more you're going to be like even as yourself listening, you're like, oh, I'm really curious about that. Like,
Yep.
can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think at the end of the day, like what you're doing in interviews, and you're just trying to get a testimony out of that person of
Mm-hmm.
sharing their life so that people can see it and feel and just be in the same situation that they're in. And I think a lot of the time that we do it, the first one, it goes a little rough sometimes, because we're asking the set questions that we have, and then we're like, we should have done that. We should have
Yeah.
done this. And I think like even you added that last question at the end. I think it was in the second interview.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, wow, like that changes everything.
Yeah.
Like we need to keep asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you learn that as you're going.
Yeah.
But I think it's also like, if you have like 50 some interviews, or you have 10, 15 interviews,
Mm-hmm.
I think you staying in the parameters of those questions that you have is a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, don't just take the questions and be like, I didn't really like that one, throw it out the window. I didn't like that one. Let me ask something else for every single person. Well, then you have a completely different
Right,
video,
right.
and you don't even know what the storyline is anymore.
Yeah.
But like once you're pulling it out of the people that are saying the things that you want to hear, like keep pulling that out.
Yeah.
But if it's
Yeah.
not going in the direction that you think it is, cool. I'd love to hear your story and hear more about your life, but I don't need that. So let me
Right.
figure out how to defer it
Yeah.
back to my questions that I needed, you know?
Yeah.
Because I know, like, even when we used to do the My Stories for our church,
Mm-hmm.
like, I would ask questions, and then it would go down this rabbit hole of, like,
Yeah.
oh, they're telling me about when they were 13, when they were 10. And
I
I'm
broke
like,
my leg when I
Yeah.
was.
and you're just like, I don't need any of this, and it's
Right.
just not going to be great. Because I remember, like, so my story is basically like sharing testimonies at our church, and we used to do videos of them. I remember the first one I did, and I was like so excited, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to get to ask questions. We sat there for an hour and a half,
Oh yeah.
and I had to make an hour and a half video
Yeah. Into like 4 minutes.
into like 4 minutes.
Horrible.
And I was like, oh
tough.
my
It's tough.
gosh, what am I going to do? Like, there's so much good stuff about it.
yeah.
Mhm.
But in that moment, I was like, well, I mean, I can just take an L. Like, at least I got to know this person, and now I know their whole life story, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But now I have to, on the back end, now I have to sit down for hours and hours and hours
Right.
to get the story perfect.
It's
Yeah.
tough because you don't want to be insensitive, and
Yeah.
you want, because people want to be seen, they want to be heard,
Yep.
and they want to be listened to, and having good listening skills is a really big part of it. But yeah, when people are sharing their stories and the things they've gone through, I'm guilty of this. When I share, I like open up the full book and like
Right.
start flipping hundreds of pages. Like Austin once, I think before Mariah and I were married, we like
My story
did like
or
a
love story.
we did a love
for them.
story for my wedding because
Had an hour and 40 minutes of dialogue.
Yeah, 'cause-
And I was supposed to try to
What?
fit it into 8 minutes, and I couldn't do it. I was still editing it the day of their wedding. Like I was like, bro, I got this down to like 14 minutes. I can't get it any shorter. And they're like, well, we don't have time to fit 14 minutes like in our wedding schedule. And I was like, well, it's gonna have to work because I
Sorry.
cannot
the
can't cut any more out.
the context of that was though the reason we wanted
There was
to
a lot
do
of
it
story to tell.
we had like 350 people at our wedding, and I
Yeah.
didn't know a lot of her family, and she didn't know a lot of mine yet. And so we wanted very much for Jesus to be the center of our marriage.
Got it.
And so like I shared essentially like my whole testimony, because
Yeah,
none
yeah,
of my family had known I gave my life to Jesus and was like following the Lord, but like they didn't really get it. And like they saw me find this beautiful girl that's my wife now, and then like seeing my life change, and they're not seeing me like post depressing things on Facebook. And I just like I wanted to bring like a cohesiveness and give God glory through it. And so I was like, we got to do a love story. But when me and Austin went to that Mulhall's, and we just popped up in a greenhouse like in the back, and just like we were chilling for like 2 hours, just like, and he was just asking me questions, and we were just kind of hanging out. It wasn't like
sure.
it was fine.
It was
it
chill.
depends so much on the type of project, and I think it just comes back to good question design, because you could ask someone, hey, tell me about your life story leading up to you accepting Jesus, or you could ask someone, hey, tell me about the singular moment where your life changed, like where your life turned around.
Yeah, it's a big.
Tell me about when you hit rock bottom, like a specific moment, and asking, because like if you're putting together a my story, that you need to have some backstory. You need to have the conflict and the pain and the struggle. Then you need to have the turnaround, the transformation,
victory.
And then you need to have the future and the result and the fruit and whatnot. And so. Just knowing the arc of your storyline. If the video you're making is super emotional and inspirational, the majority of your questions and your time spent with people should be trying to pull emotion out of them, not get them to say words. However, if you're interviewing someone for something else, whether it's news related or informational, or if it's a course or something like that, that's a little bit different.
Right.
Like I think of when we're working with Todd Smith, like with Todd Smith, we have to just hit record and let him talk for 2 hours. And then we take it back and we cut it up into videos. But we've learned, like, trying to curate questions and ask him questions, it just doesn't work with his personality type. And so you really have to...
You can learn your clients.
you have to cater to the types of client, the type of project. But these are just generally, for the majority of our interviews, I think this is applicable.
So do you think, like going back to that though, do you think they can change the way they've done it before? So, like, for example, the Todd Smiths you're talking about, like, you guys also did that with the other St. Roberts, and you guys had, like, hours of footage.
Yep.
But then he, like, curated a couple questions, and it completely changed their mind.
Totally.
And they were like, oh, wow. You mean I can answer everything in 2 sentences? I don't have to talk about my whole life story. I don't have to do that. So, like, what if you're a solopreneur and you're doing this all by yourself, and you're like listening and you're like, dude, I suck at asking questions. Bro, my wife be telling me to listen, and I'm like, dude, I am listening, like, it's crazy, right? But he's like asking himself these questions, or maybe her, and she's like trying to figure out, like, how do I ask good questions? Because you don't just wake up and you go, oh, I know how to ask every question you can think of. Like, how do you put yourself in that situation where you're like, I am listening, but I'm just not asking the right questions. Like, how do you go about asking the right questions of, for that interview or whatever you're doing there? Like, how do you go about asking that question?
What I do is I figure out what is my ideal script. Like, if I were to write a script, what would I want them to say in an ideal world? We sit down, this is exactly how I envision it. And to the point where I have written out, I'll draw my story arc, and I'll write lines based on who I'm interviewing of ideally what do I want them to say.
Yeah.
And then I ask myself, what would someone have to ask me for me to say that? And then I formulate my questions based on that.
That's good.
I just put myself in that situation and figure out what needs to be asked in order to get this or something like this.
And that's why Trev is in charge of pre-production. All right, so the day's wrapped, or no, the interview's wrapped. How do we kind of close that? Whether that's 10 minutes or an hour or whatever that it looks like with that person that you're interviewing, how do you kind of just like wrap? Not like, all right, see you later, but like, what do we do, and what do we feel like works well?
We usually depending on
the heck out of here.
See ya. Peace out. Well, see you in there.
Thank goodness that's over.
I feel like we usually end our interviews just opening it up to, hey, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Is there anything that you feel that we'd missed? Or is there a question that you wish we'd asked that we didn't? Something along those lines, just to give them an opportunity. If there is something else they wanted to share that we didn't touch on, give them an opportunity. And then I would say I thank them very seriously and sincerely for their time. Thank you for taking your time out of your
Yep.
day to come do this. Thank you for being so willing and able and cooperative. It was great to meet you. And just, really just trying to make the best impression and have them leave for their day feeling great.
Yeah. No, I would agree with all of that. I think, walking them out to just like talking with them as they gather their things, just not being like, oh, we got what we needed, like, see you later, but just like, hey, thank you so much. Thanking sincerely, I think is great. And then, just like, I can't wait, like, to put this together. This is going to be awesome. I can't wait for you to see it. Just like, so they have something to look forward to. And just really affirming them for taking their time and coming and doing what they did. So, that's always been really good.
I was just going to say, just setting any expectation, if there is any, of like, hey, I don't know if, the clients had a chance to chat with you yet, but I think this is going to be going live here in a few weeks. So you should be able to see it. If you know any of those details, which I think it's probably healthy to know, like from your client, hey, are you planning on sending this to the people that were in it beforehand so they can see it? And if you know those details, just passing those on to them of, hey, here's when you can expect to see it.
Right.
And then just, encouraging them again that they did a great job.
Yeah. I think a practical step too is literally just asking them and just saying, oh, this is all the questions I had. How did you feel it went? And most of the times you'll get like the answers that you're looking for, which is like, oh, I thought it went great. But sometimes I feel like you might run into those people that are like, oh, that wasn't great. And you can like literally keep talking to them and just have the camera keep rolling.
Sure.
And don't cut until they feel like they're good, which I think even like a lot of the times that I've done like the interview process of the My Stories and stuff like that, a lot of the times some of the things that I pull from have come after we were done asking the question.
After they think you cut. Because then they're like at ease and it's like, cool, now it's just us talking.
Yeah, and then you get more out of them than you would have, like you would have wanted more, and you get it more because of they feel like, oh, now I can be myself, which I think a lot of the times people will think that way of like, oh, I have to act a certain way in front of camera.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to be a certain person. And then you get to that point and they're like, oh, wow, that was great. I feel great now. And like now you can thank them and they'll probably ask you the question that you just said of like, oh, when can I get a copy of this? I think you should always be like, yeah, you can get a copy of this. I'll just have to ask whoever's in charge of it if they can get you a copy, but like making sure, like taking that next step of like asking that person that you're working with, hey, is there any way we can get a copy of this, or can you send an email out to them, or can you contact them to make sure that they know that they're getting this, or if they're not, make sure they know that as well. Yeah. Because then they're looking at you like, hey, you promised me I'm going to get this video. You promised me I'm going to get these pictures, and you're like, I didn't promise you anything. I told you that I'd talk to the client about it, because they're the ones ultimately making the decision to give this to you or not.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, a lot can come out even after you hit stop record or don't. I'd probably recommend just not if you're going to keep talking. But I think that's like what all this boils down to, the art of interviewing, is getting people to feel like they're just having a conversation with you. I think is what all of this boils down to. All of the warming up to them and breaking the ice and trying to make them feel comfortable. It's so that they'll just talk to you like a human and not like you're a camera in front of their face. And so that's really good.
Yeah, I just feel like,
encouragement time.
Wow.
Well, that was nice.
That was so nice.
We got a button for it now. Check it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, got so excited.
Yeah.
All right, encouragement.
All right, one more time. Just yeah.
Wow, it's so good. I feel
So
encouraged.
good.
I want to
just
sing
listening.
along every time.
I
but-
know it's tough.
Yeah, it's
but
hard not to.
it kind of defeats the purpose because we.
It'd be great for you two to sing next
Mm.
along with it.
But
yeah, or we could sing it.
Yikes.
Yeah, just pay someone to make a jingle and then just ruin it.
Yeah, right. Anyway, it's encouragement time.
Who's got an
Yeah.
encouragement for us?
I got an encouragement
Oh,
for us.
sick.
Let's
Let's
go,
get it, Ray.
Let's go, Ray.
That
So-
camera. Sorry. Just kidding.
That camera,
All of
that
them.
camera. Listen here. This week's encouragement. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently, and every single one of them has basically said the exact same thing, and it's to take risks. And I know you've heard this time and time again of like, oh, I need to take a risk. Oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. And I think a lot of the times that we think about taking a risk, we think about, oh, I hate my job. It's just telling me to quit my job and leave it right now and go do whatever I want to do with the passion that I have. And I think that that's the misconception of everybody, is that taking a risk means just doing it step at a time. So whether that looks like you're stepping out of your boundary a little bit of like, hey, I've always wanted to shoot photos. Okay, what's the first thing you can do? Get a camera or go to start taking pictures on your phone. Like, it doesn't need to be this big elaborate thing that you think in your head. I think you taking the risk to just take that step in the next direction is like literally God's asking you to go in this path, and you're like, no, I want to stay in this path. But if you take a step in that path, you're like slowly opening up to something bigger than you could have imagined. So that's my encouragement for you guys today, is take a risk in whatever that looks like in your life.
Sick.
Yeah.
All right.
I love it.
it. If there's something that you've been scared of doing,
Just do it.
go do it. I know, like, for me, I get a ton of life when we just decide, because there's a lot of decisions. There's a lot of paths you could go down. There's a lot of different risks you could take. And so it's like, well, which one do I do? And I think just do one. Like,
Yep.
I'm sick of trying to decide. And so, like, I'm ready to just decide a direction
Yeah.
and start running in that direction.
For
And
sure.
what I've learned through experience is when we've done that, God's right behind it every single time. And
Yeah.
it's crazy how fast things can change. When you're willing to just take action on something.
Yep.
Love it.
Amazing.
All right, let's get back into the episode.
So yeah, guys, all of this really comes down to serving your clients well. I mean, I think it really, at the end of the day, it comes back to loving people.
Yep.
If you don't love people or you don't like people, I think you're going to have a really hard time with this,
Yeah, you are.
with this business and industry in general,
Mhm.
but specifically with interviewing clients. I think you're going to not like it very much if you don't really enjoy being around people.
Yep.
If you don't care what people have to say and care about people's lives. And I think if you can get a genuine desire to learn and care about whatever that person has to say, whatever their experience is, and you can, I guess I don't know how to describe it, but it's like there's this level of like, you care about the person.
Yeah.
I think it's like this intangible thing, but
Yeah.
it's like if
Yep.
you just care about people, the rest of this will kind of work itself out. If you don't care about people, then you're just probably going to go through the motions, and it's going to be a basic interview, and you might get a result and
Yeah.
it might be okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
But if you can go a step deeper and
Yeah.
Go
really care and think from their perspective and try to put yourself in their shoes, and listen intently and be thinking and concentrating and present the whole time. Don't be thinking about the next question that you're going to ask.
Right.
Be thinking about what they're saying right now
Yep.
Yeah.
and where you can take that next. And there's a lot of things to think about. You're thinking about the edit and how this can fit in with the other interviews and what else you can pull out that you don't have yet. So there's a lot more. I mean, we could talk about this subject for hours,
Right.
Yeah,
but
there's literally so much to talk about with
Yeah.
inflection and how you ask questions and
And
making
that's-
sure
yeah.
they end on a good inflection, like they meant what they said.
Yep.
And there's a ton to go deeper into. But even still, we've said a lot about the art of interviewing. Hopefully now it's clear that it's not really something you can genuinely crush just by showing up and asking some
Winging
questions.
right.
So yeah, we've said a lot. If it sounds like a lot, if you've never conducted an interview in this way, just try and implement one thing maybe that we've said today into your next interview and see how it changes your end product. See how much better it makes your interview, and in turn how much better it makes the video.
Heck yeah.
It's awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us you can find our channel on the YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it.
Can't even tell when
Yeah.
the one note is. Yeah.
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 Find us on that YouTube. Yeah.
Subscribe now. Yeah.
Call it YouTube Studio.
Yeah.
The Glory Boys Pod.
Instagram. You know I am the man. I'm
Follow
sitting
us
the-
on Twitter. Just kidding. We don't have Twitter, but we're on the YouTube, Facebook,
We have Twitter.
Instagram. I guess we have a Twitter.
Yeah, we get like 10,000 followers.
Make sure to like and follow, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on when we drop new videos as well. When we go in every Monday, every Wednesday, we drop videos on our YouTube channel. Yeah, that's all I got. No, not every Monday and Wednesday, but
Close enough.
anyways,
See you guys.
we out.
Yeah.
Peace.